This is Banjo with part 2 of the Beginner's Editing tutorial series, and today I am simply overviewing the use of the general user interface. We see this bottom bar, which displays information relating to the time and date set up in the mission, which is defined in Intel, which I will go over when I go over the Intel section. And we also see location data that relates to our cursor location. We can see it's 5.5 meters off the ground. We can see its X and Y coordinates as well as its grid location displayed in the lower left. Next we'll take a look at the left panel of the editor user interface, starting with the top, which is currently selected in amber. This is the insert unit function. By pressing F1 we could select it or left clicking on it, and this is how we place objects, vehicles and units in the map. Next we have groups. This is how you will place predefined groups that are already set up. Here we have triggers, which is how you place triggers into the map. I will do a thorough tutorial on that soon enough. Next we have waypoints. This will allow you to issue move waypoints as well as other waypoints for various units. Synchronization is used mainly with triggers to synchronize a trigger to a unit. Markers can be used to set up marker locations visible on the map as well as location data for scripts. And then we have modules, which are pre-set up scripts that do a number of functions, like the Intel modules can create tasks. I will go over them in a future video. Moving on to the lower left panel, we could see 4 selections, with the second option currently being selected. This is where you're going to spend 95% of your time, as this is the mission editing mode, where you'll edit the actual mission you'll play. When creating a campaign, you will often use an intro as well as an outro with win or loss set up depending on what you would like to have play out. By editing the mission in one of these panels, this is how you'll set it up, save it, and call it through a script to set up the intro or outro. This is more of an advanced function that I'll go over later. Up in the top panel, your first selection is New Mission, and it'll wipe everything currently placed off the map. Second selection is Load Mission, which is how you'll select your saved missions. The second option is Save, and the fourth is Save As, allowing you to name it. The fifth option will merge 2 missions together. In this next tab we have Intel, which I'll go over later, but I'll give a brief description of it. You can give a name description, set up weather options, set independence, allegiance, as well as a few other functions in there. Then our next 3 options are the debug function and config viewers, which are quite advanced functions. But basically, you could look up any script function, debug things in your mission, as well as look up config files and other useful advanced features. Next we have textures, which will show all the textures from your in-game map in the editing map, which is useful for showing taxiways as well as other things, so you don't have to go in-game to find them in the editor. Selecting ID will show every object in the editor, including every stone, every fence, every house, as an ID number, which could be used to reference locations and scripts. In our next tab, we have an option to select a different user interface, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, and an option to publish your mission up onto the Steam Workshop. Here is where the preview mission box would be if your mission was set up with a playable unit in-game, and continue, which if you were working on a mission and you quit, it would allow you to go back in without it resetting. Now we have minimize and close editor up in the top right, and we would see the red northern and eastern bar that highlights our cursor, as well as the corners for the cursor. That's how you know what you're selecting in the editor, as I'm currently using a mouse outside of the editor. All that information in the lower bar in the left hand side of it relates to the positioning of the cursor, which can be seen as I move the cursor around. Next, I'm going to change the UI to the old user interface that was used in ARMA 2 to demonstrate what that looks like. By selecting it, we could see I'm currently using the streamlined, which is the ARMA 3 editor layout, or a user interface, as it can be called. And next, we have traditional, which is the ARMA 2 user interface. We can see it gives us a warning, which a restart is required, saying everything that's in the editor will be lost. Restarting will restart it, changing the user interface to the old layout that was used back in ARMA 2. Now we can see everything's pretty much as it was, except the left bar is replaced by this UI up in the top right. Starting with the mission tab, that is where mission, intro, and both outros are stored. Below that is how you set the time of the mission. Below that is how you set basic weather options, allowing for sunny all the way out to stormy. The Intel tab has more detailed weather options, and then we have all our functions listed just below that, which were contained in the left panel of the streamlined UI. With that, you now know how to use both user interfaces, and in the next video I will go over the functions that are used in the editor.